Growing up, I was constantly pulled into my mother's web of lies, used as her alibi, her cover, and her shield. From a young age, I was forced to carry the burden of her secrets. She would drag me into her tangled affairs with other men, putting me in situations no child should ever have to endure, all while threatening me into silence. It started innocently enough, or so I thought, when she'd tell me we were going on a girls' day out. At first, I was excited, thinking it was a chance to spend some quality time with her, just the two of us. She'd dress up, wearing a smile that seemed forced, layered with makeup and perfume as if she were trying to become someone else. I remember the odd feeling in the pit of my stomach, sensing that something wasn't quite right. But I brushed it off, because she was my mom, and I trusted her. We'd drive out somewhere, and I'd think we were going to a movie or a park together. But instead, she'd tell me we were meeting a friend, a man I'd never seen before. Her tone would change, as though she were trying to convince both me and herself that this was normal. The looks on their faces, the whispers, the way they would laugh while glancing at me in the back seat, it all felt wrong, even if I couldn't fully understand why. Before long, her routine became clear. She'd leave me in the car for what felt like hours, waiting while she vanished into a stranger's house or a motel. Sometimes she'd drop me off at a park or a shopping mall, handing me a few dollars and telling me to go have fun on my own. I would sit there, lost in a place meant for people who weren't alone, feeling like a shadow drifting between stores or staring at the swings in an empty playground. She made it very clear that I was never, under any circumstances, to tell anyone where she went or who she was with. If I so much as hinted at the truth to my biological father or stepfather, she'd lash out. It wasn't just yelling. She knew how to make me regret ever opening my mouth. She would stare at me with a look that could freeze my blood, her words slicing like knives, reminding me that I was utterly alone if I didn't stay silent. The manipulation didn't stop there. She would guilt-trip me, saying that if I told anyone, I'd be ruining everything for our family, that she'd be taken away, that I'd be all alone. As a young kid, I was terrified. I didn't want to lose her, didn't want to be the reason my family fell apart. So I learned to lie, to bury the guilt and the fear deep inside. I'd paste on a smile and tell my dad we'd had a great girls' day, all the while feeling like I was suffocating under the weight of her secrets. Years went by, and the cycle continued. With every girls' trip, every lie I told for her, I lost a little more of myself. I was robbed of my innocence, my honesty, and any sense of safety I should have felt as a child. I was just a pawn, manipulated and coerced into protecting her deceit, never realizing how deeply those lies would affect me. Now I look back, and I don't just feel sadness. I feel anger, resentment, and a longing for a childhood that was never mine to begin with. Update. First, thank you to everyone who reached out with support and understanding. It's taken me a while to process all the memories that resurfaced after sharing that post. I never expected it to hit me as hard as it did, and honestly, I didn't expect so many people to relate to my story. Reading your comments made me realize I wasn't as alone as I thought. Since posting, I've started to confront a lot of the things I buried about my childhood. I'm seeing now just how much of my life has been shaped by the secrets I was forced to keep and the lies I was told to tell. For years, I convinced myself that it was somehow my fault, that I was to blame for allowing her to manipulate me. I know that's not true, but those feelings have been hard to shake. A few days after my post, I decided to reach out to my biological father. It was terrifying, to be honest. I wasn't sure if I could even explain everything, or if he would believe me after all this time. But he did. He listened, without interrupting or judging, and when I finished, he said something I never expected. He apologized. He apologized for not seeing it sooner, for not questioning all those girls' days we'd supposedly spent together, for not protecting me in the way a father should. It was such a strange moment, both sad and comforting, because I knew that, for once, I wasn't the one who had to carry all the guilt. My stepfather, on the other hand, has been a different story. I haven't yet told him about the things my mother did, but he's starting to sense something's up. He's called me a few times asking if I'm all right, if everything's okay. I think deep down, he might suspect something, but is afraid to confront it. He's always been the type to avoid conflict, and I'm honestly not sure how he'd handle hearing the truth about everything that happened. As for my mother, I haven't spoken to her directly about any of this yet. I think part of me still feels afraid, as if I'm that kid all over again, scared of the consequences of telling her no, of standing up to her. But I'm getting there. I know that eventually I need to confront her and release myself from the hold she still has over me. I don't know what that conversation will look like, if it will bring any closure or just open up old wounds, but I'm preparing myself to face it, one day at a time. For now, I'm focusing on healing and finding my voice. I've spent so much of my life in silence, buried under the weight of her secrets, and I'm ready to finally step out from under that shadow. I'll post more updates as things progress, especially once I talk to my stepfather or mother, but I just wanted to thank everyone who's helped me get this far. It means more than I can say. I didn't expect to be back here so soon with another update, but things have been moving faster than I anticipated. First, I just want to say how grateful I am for the overwhelming support and encouragement from everyone here. Sharing my story was terrifying, but knowing I'm not alone has given me so much strength. Since the last update, I've taken some major steps, though I'd be lying if I said they were easy. After talking to my biological father, I finally worked up the courage to approach my stepfather. I wrestled with this decision for a while because, despite everything, he's been a huge part of my life. I didn't know how he would react, and I was scared he might brush it off or, worse, get angry at me for bringing it up. But I knew that he deserved the truth, and I deserved to unburden myself of it. When I sat him down, I could barely get the words out. I stammered, feeling like a kid again, reliving every moment I'd spent covering for my mother. But he just listened, with this look in his eyes that was a mix of shock, sadness, and maybe even a bit of understanding. When I told him about all the times I'd been left alone, all the lies I'd been forced to tell on her behalf, he didn't interrupt once. At the end, he looked at me for a long moment and simply said, "I'm so sorry." He didn't blame me or make excuses for her. He just hugged me. And for the first time, I felt like someone really understood. Since then, things between us have been complicated. There's this shared pain now, and while it's brought us closer, it's also opened up some wounds that are hard to ignore. He's trying to process everything, and I can see that it's hurting him, maybe even making him question things about their relationship that he hadn't before. I didn't expect this to affect him so deeply, but I guess I underestimated how much my mother's actions impacted us all. Now, about my mother, I haven't confronted her yet, but it's coming. I feel it. She's been texting me more than usual, almost like she knows something's off, but I've been avoiding her. The thought of actually facing her and telling her that I know, that I remember everything, still terrifies me. I keep running through different scenarios in my head. What I'll say, how she'll react, if she'll try to twist things around like she always does. Part of me wants to cut her off completely, to just leave all this behind. But another part of me feels like I need answers, or at least the chance to tell her how deeply she hurt me, so I can finally move on. Right now, I'm just taking it day by day. Talking to my dad and stepfather has been a huge weight off my shoulders, but I know there's still a long road ahead. I'm trying to be patient with myself, to understand that healing isn't going to happen overnight. I've started seeing a therapist, and we're slowly unpacking all the layers of trauma I've been carrying. It's hard work, and some days I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, but I'm determined to keep going. Thank you again to everyone who has been following along and offering support. I'll keep you updated as things unfold, especially once I finally gather the courage to face my mother. I don't know what will happen, but I know now that I'm not alone, and that makes all the difference. Update 3. I didn't think I'd be back with another update so soon, but a lot has happened, and I need to get it off my chest. Since my last post, things have taken a turn that I didn't expect, especially with my mother. I feel like the more I uncover, the more tangled and painful the memories become, but I'm starting to believe that facing all of this is the only way I'll ever be free. After I spoke with my stepfather, I guess word got back to my mother. I hadn't planned on him telling her, but he called her to confront her directly. She showed up at my door the next day, unannounced, and it was like being thrust back into the worst moments of my childhood. I barely had time to brace myself before she started in, first pretending she didn't know why I was upset, then playing the victim, and finally turning it all back on me. She kept asking, "Why are you bringing up the past? Why can't you just let things go?" As if the pain I've been carrying all these years is something I could just put down like an old toy. She called me ungrateful, accused me of trying to ruin her relationships, and even claimed that I was misremembering things, twisting reality to suit her version of events. She said she was only trying to protect me, that she kept me close to her because she needed me. It was classic manipulation, and for the first time, I could see right through it. But this time, I didn't back down. I told her that I remember everything, the lies, the times she left me alone, the way she threatened me into silence. I told her about the pain, the confusion, the betrayal I've felt all these years. She tried to interrupt, but I kept talking, finally releasing everything I'd kept bottled up. For the first time in my life, I stood my ground. She didn't take it well. She broke down in tears, and it almost got to me. I almost fell back into that role of comforting her, of taking responsibility for her pain. But I stopped myself. I told her I couldn't keep carrying her secrets and her lies, that I needed to do this for myself. She left in a storm of anger and tears, but I didn't let myself feel guilty. I realized that finally I was choosing my own peace over her manipulation. After she left, I sat in silence for a long time, trying to process everything that had just happened. It was exhausting, like reliving all those years in a single moment. But there was also a strange sense of relief. I had said my truth. I had looked her in the eye and told her everything I'd been too afraid to say. It didn't change the past, but it felt like a step toward breaking free from it. Since then, things have been complicated. My stepfather and I are closer than ever, but he's grappling with his own feelings of betrayal and regret. And we're both finding our way through this tangled mess together. My biological father has been supportive, checking in regularly, and I feel like we're starting to rebuild our relationship on more honest terms. I know this isn't the end of the story, and I don't know what will happen next with my mother. Part of me worries that she'll find a way to twist this and make me the villain. But another part of me is learning not to care so much about her version of events. For now, I'm focusing on my own healing, on finally letting go of the guilt and shame she forced onto me all those years ago. Thank you to everyone here who has been following along and offering support and advice. I know I'm not alone in this journey, and I'll keep updating as I continue working through this mess. It's not over, but for the first time, I'm hopeful that I can come out of this stronger. Final update. I can't believe I'm finally here, writing what I know will be my last update. It's been a whirlwind of emotions, memories, and realizations, but I can honestly say that I've reached a place of peace I never thought possible. This journey hasn't been easy, and there were so many moments I wanted to give up, to push everything back down and pretend like none of it ever happened. But here I am, and I want to share how it all unfolded in the end. After my last post, things were tense, especially with my mother. For weeks, I tried to process our last conversation. Her denial, her anger, and the way she turned everything back on me, as if I was the one responsible for all the pain she caused. I was torn between wanting to forgive and let go, and feeling this deep, unresolved anger every time I thought about what she'd put me through. But despite everything, I kept moving forward, little by little, with the support of my stepfather, my biological father, and all of you here. Eventually, my mother reached out again, asking to meet one last time. Part of me didn't want to go, but I knew that if I didn't face her one final time, it would leave a part of me trapped in the past. I went with no expectations, no hope of an apology or even understanding. I just wanted to close that chapter, whatever that looked like. When we met, it was different. She was quiet, not the combative, defensive person I'd seen in our last encounter. For once, she listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't try to twist my words or deny my reality. She just sat there, and for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, she was ready to take responsibility. But then, as I finished, she looked at me and said, "I did what I thought was best." It was a painful reminder of who she is, a person who may never fully understand or accept the pain she caused. But this time, instead of feeling crushed, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I realized I didn't need her validation, her apology, or her acknowledgement to heal. I'd spent so much of my life chasing after something she wasn't capable of giving, and in that moment, I finally let go of the need for her approval. I stood up, told her I wished her well, and walked away. I didn't look back, and for the first time in my life, I felt free. Since that day, everything has changed. My relationship with my stepfather has grown stronger, based on a newfound honesty and understanding. We both feel a sense of closure, even if it took a painful journey to get here. My biological father and I have also rebuilt our bond in a way that feels real and grounded, not based on secrets or lies. They've both supported me in ways I never thought possible, and I feel surrounded by a sense of family that's no longer tainted by deception. Therapy has been an essential part of this journey, and I can honestly say it's helped me find pieces of myself I thought were lost forever. I've started building a life that feels like mine, one that isn't weighed down by someone else's mistakes or manipulations. I'm discovering who I am outside of all of this, and it's a feeling I can barely describe. Liberating, empowering, healing. This chapter of my life is finally closed. I'll always carry the scars, but they don't define me anymore. I'm moving forward with the people who genuinely care about me and with a stronger sense of self than I ever thought possible. To everyone who's followed along, offered advice, shared their own experiences, and reminded me I wasn't alone, thank you. You've been a lifeline, a source of strength, and a constant reminder that healing is possible, even when it feels impossible. This is my final update, and it's also my first real step into a life free from my mother's shadow. Thank you for being here with me, every step of the way.